Okay, Mercedes W463 G 500. This is a 2005. A couple weeks ago I did a little thingy on the air seat, the multi-contour seat adjustments on the bladders built inside the driver's seat. I'm still having a bit of a problem with every once in a while the pump not coming on whatsoever, or turning off after 15-20 minutes, not staying working. So I'm going to access the pump and see if we can find a problem with that. And the pump is located underneath the center in the back. You have to remove your cup holder, a couple of Phillips screws in the center. Pull the Phillips screws out, pull the cup holder out, and then these two little locking flathead screws. I think there's a half twist, and this is where your battery is as well. Your car battery is under here. So anyway, I'm going to pull the screws out of that, pull the cup holder out, and we'll lift it. As you can see, it moves this whole cover out and back in a second. Okay, putting both front seats forward will aid in getting this out. And you'll notice that's also where your jack and tool bag is under the little center cover. Now to the side of this should be the air pump, which means we're going to have to pull. Oh, I've got the console in the way. I've got to pull the carpet up. Right under there, under that panel, looks like a 10 mil, should be the air pump under that panel, if you can see it. Right there. Down goes the camera, sorry. Right there under that panel should be the air pump. So I'm going to grab a 10 mil and be back in a second. Okay, so we've got the floor mat pushed up and just tucked out of the way against the door. And now we're just going to remove, I've loosened it, this 10 millimeter nut or bolt. Pull the cover away, and this should be our pump, which it is. And we're going to check the connections. Well, I'm going to go put the key in the ignition. I'm going to leave the camera running, but I'm going to put the key in the ignition.
Summer, flow tank berry. Relax, breathe, rejuvenate.
Okay, you may have heard it run for a second there. I pushed the multi-contour seat buttons and it ran for a second. I could hear it run. And then it decided not to run anymore. And it should run just with the ignition on position 2. Try it again. Oh, there we go. Hear it running now? Now it's not running. So it's doing what it wants when it feels like it. So we're going to unhook. I'm going to turn the ignition off. Then we're going to unhook the electrical connection and then pop these little vacuum connectors off and open this up and see if we can't see why the motor is not wanting to run all the time. Back in a second. You know what, I'm going to leave the camera running. I'm just going to turn the ignition off, pull the key out. Always have your ignition off when you're unhooking electrical components. Most of the time, anyway. You hear it running now? So it's running intermittently. It's not, there's not a leak. There's not an air leak that's keeping it from running. It's intermittent. I'm going to gently pop. God, I hate molded plastic. Terrifies me. Make sure they're not sticky. Just have to gently pop them off. I do not want to break them, so I'm just going to gently move them back and forth so they spread. These little ears on the side spread and it pops off. And this may take a few minutes. Unhook this electrical connection. Okay, so I'm just going to gently work these off. It might take me a few minutes to gently pop them off. Okay, both popped off. Can't get them mixed up. These are kind of hard lines, so you're not going to get they're not going to move, so you know where they go. Well, just remember that this went in this way. So we're going to now take the back off the pump and see if we can find anything wrong with the motor. Back in a minute once I get some more tools. Okay, so there's two seals on this one. Warranty seals. Woo, I care. Anyway, I've just scored them so that this will pop up. I'm just going to slip a flathead under. Ooh, come on. There we go. Just prying those little gray clips out. Gently, no reason to hurry or rush anything. I haven't taken one of these apart yet, so I do not want to wreck it. Another one here. This is going to be a little bit of a fun one. Oh, maybe not. That one's going to be tough to pop. Okay, hold on. I'm going to keep the pressure on the back ones while I'm popping out the front ones. Excuse my idiot dogs barking if they do. Okay. So what have we got in here? Just, let's just look a little foam rubber. That's it for the pump, huh? Little logic board and a pump. Positive and a negative going up to the board, and that's about it. There's a trigger in this somewhere. There's no electrical wires on the front multi-contour seat. So what I'm going to do is plug this back in, and we'll see what happens. Do you see anything burnt on that circuit board? I mean, I'm no electronics whiz. I just look for burnt circuits and stuff. Do you guys see anything? I don't see anything. There's only one air valve here. So this has got to be the trigger. So this senses a need for pressure. This supplies the pressure. How does it sense a need for pressure on the seat switch? And when you release pressure, that releases it at the switch. You can hear it hiss out there. So the need for pressure, how does that trigger a need for pressure? Not sure how that works. Anyway, I'm doubting all of those switches on the multi-contour because they work sometimes and sometimes don't. I cannot see all of them failing. I'm assuming it's this motor is having an issue. So let's pop that. And I'm gonna take this back in front, plug it in, and we're gonna listen for it running. This is Shade Tree Diagnostics. Again, I have no idea what I'm doing. You're learning this with me right now. So I'm going to plug this in and see what happens. Okay, so I plugged it in and turned the key on. And now apparently it's just running. So it's sensing a need for pressure from something. It's blowing air. You can hear the little nipple that I disconnected. Okay, so I'll pick that nipple back up again. Put this down and try and get this camera so you guys can see. Okay, so because these two are unhooked, it's just sensing a constant loss of pressure in the seats. I'm going to pop them back on. Not sure what it's wanting to do now. Okay, now it's off. So maybe it's just primed. No, nothing happening now. Okay, so I'm hitting the switches and nothing's happening. Unplug this, nothing happens. Flathead screwdriver. Oh, I'll just pull this off if I can without a screwdriver, which I don't think I can. 1 second. So which one's which? POM, I'm assuming that's pump. So this is going to be the one that triggers. God, I hate prying on old plastic. What are you going to do though? So now even with a signal for pressure, that's what you would assume that's what that would do. What would signal that to turn on? What would signal that? What do you think if I blew into this end, if a pressure variation signaled it? Yeah, I doubt it. What would signal you? I'm going to try that pump switch again. I can still hear the air releasing in the front. But the signal to turn the unit on is not. Whatever, it gets a pneumatic signal of some sort from these to turn on. Well, how does that work? It doesn't know the seat's out of air. You let the air out. The air escapes up front. You can hear it escape up front. That's where it comes out from. There's no reservoir to hold pressure, so this only pumps when it needs pressure. So something this much signal from that switch up there that it needs pressure, but that switch has no electrical connection in it. So it's got to be pneumatic. Some type of air pressure that tells this one to turn the pump on. It's the only thing I can think of. just for shits and giggles, I'm going to blow into that. If I get my damn head down in here. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get a rubber hose. I am not digging myself down a foot well. Hold on a second. Weird. This just came on by itself when I turned the camera on. So this is signaled. It's got to be signaled by a drop in pressure. Now it's coming on and going off on its own. This is a little rubber. Stop. So since it's intermittent, I'm going to unplug this. Let's take a closer look at this thing. So this just is a little rubber nipple that plugs into this. This is just a pressure. Sorry, I don't think I'm in front of the camera. This is just a little pressure switch. This is just like a rubber seal that goes around it, and that pushes into the right above my finger. That little hole and seals in there. So these two lines here go up to a T right here, so you can see the right in front of my finger. There's a white connection. That T is into 1, so that's a 2 into 1. So there is no. So this pumps air this way into the system. The only thing that can do is sense that one of the valves is. God, no, because if you're opening it, it's okay. Opening releases the air from there. Pushing it the other way opens the air hose to this in this direction. Opens it up. This senses a pressure drop and signals the pump to come on to supply air, because these two go T into 1. So there's only one connection going up into the control unit by your seat. So it's, and if you look, this is the one that I unhooked from the pressure side, from the pump side. This is the one that connects to the pump and pumps the air out. Pumps out here. This is a check valve. It's one way. So the air goes this way. It can't come back that way. So all this does here in this little sucker is sense when you push the one of the control bladders, you open the valve there, and that, because this whole line is open, it shows a pressure drop here, and the pressure drop signals the pump to turn on. That's it. And the pump pumps air in one direction to whichever switch is open in the little valve body up there. So the only thing that could possibly be wrong is this isn't sealing, but if this wasn't sealing, it would get a pressure drop all the time and the pump would run continuously. Since the pump isn't running continuously, the only thing I can think of is the motor. The brushes are a little flaky. God, those are some small screws. I'd like to put some. I'm going to use some grease on the. See if I can lube and get some electrical contact cleaner, maybe in through the sides, the little vent sides here. Because I don't think there's an overheating problem. I don't think there's anything like that with this pump. I think it's merely that the pump motor is worn out or carboned up from years and years and years. That's the only thing I can assume is going on. Because if this wasn't sealing, there would be a pressure drop and it would signal the motor to go on all the time. And then the air would come out and you would just divert it to whatever valve. So, I'm guessing there's also a pressure switch in there that when you pump up the bladders to a certain PSI or millibar or whatever, that it also turns off the motor. So either this thinks there's too much pressure or not enough pressure. Which one is it? Again, I have no idea how this circuit works. I'm just trying to ferret it out right here while we're looking. I'm going to try that. Because if it's shutting itself off thinking there's too much pressure, when you release the pressure it should still come back on. It would come back on its own. So, considering there's only one air line going up to the front. They're not leaking. Front controls can't be the issue. They can't all at the same time not open. So it's got to be this pressure switch either not sealing properly, which again I think if it didn't seal, it would signal the pump to run. My bet's with the motor. So I'm going to find some electrical contact cleaner. I'm going to see if I can get this little, I don't know if I want to. They're tiny little screws. Let me see if I can get this motor top off. I don't think I can get to the brush. The brushes are back here anyway, so screw that. I'm going to spray a little electric contact cleaner down into that hole there and see what happens. And I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so I sprayed some electrical contact cleaner into the motor. Plugged it back in, still runs fine. But what I'm going to do now is reassemble everything with some dielectric grease in order to seal all the connections. And the one thing I noticed with this little circuit board and nipple is that there's nothing holding this in. There's no bolt, there's no screw holding this thing in. So it's very likely that this is not getting a great seal up in there in its little slot, the little pink thing. When you unhook and hook up the connector with the case off, it just rattles up and, or not rattles, but it moves up and down on its own. And there's nothing there to secure it in place, which seems kind of silly. Like what, this is just the only thing holding it in the electrical connector? So I guess jostling around could make this come and sense, you know, maybe screw up the board by thinking there's pressure when there isn't or whatever. But either way, I'm going to seal all these connections, all the pneumatic connections back up. This one just plugs into there and then plugs into the back of the pump. The wire goes down around underneath it, so you have to run that in first. So I'm just going to put all this back together, again using some electrical contact grease so it has a good airtight fit. We'll put it all back together and plug it in and see what happens. I'm also going to, the two pop-on fittings on the top, I'm going to grease those as well. Other than that, I can't see, I mean, I can't diagnose this board, but I can't see what else could be wrong. I'm looking for mechanical things, broken things, leaking things, you know, connections, things like that. If it's electronic, I don't know. But the only other thing, like I said, could be that multi-contour seat connection up front, but I can't see how that could work sometimes and not, and how all the buttons could not work or work. So it's got to be one or the other. It's either working or not working, not you know, just one or the other. Anyway, I'll put this all back together and be back in a few minutes. Okay, so here's what we have before it goes back together. And the little board that I was showing that wasn't held in by anything, it's held in by these 2 feet. When it's flipped over and pushed in, this surrounds the check valve, and the 2 feet hold up on the board and keep it from moving. Ugh. Anyway, slip that back. Oops. Slip that back over. Snap that into place. Oh, my dog has wrapped himself around a tree. Back in 1 minute. Okay, so I'm also going to take a little dielectric grease and put it around these 2 connectors. Again, I don't think they're leaking, but what the hell. Move this out of the way. Gotta plug the 2 back in. Plug the electrical connector back in. You heard the pump run for a second there. Let's see if when called for it runs. No, why would it? Not understanding. So I'm going to turn the ignition on and off and reset. Maybe it needs a reset. Hold on. think I heard it run when it first started. Oh, hold on. Still nothing. Okay, I'll leave that plugged in. Okay, I did a little check run. Let's try it again. Well, it ran a few times and now it doesn't want to run again. Weird. Will the pressure drop of unhooking this one start it running? Come on, pop off without breaking yourself, please. Okay, the pressure differential is not causing it. So the pressure drop is not causing it to come on. Let's unhook this one. I bet it comes on when this one comes on. Or unhooks, I mean. And no. Weird. Push the buttons again. There should be nothing to signal it. Plug just this one in. Nothing. Nothing. Color me stumped. Let's just, for the hell of it, we're in here. I'll put some dielectric grease on this connection. I don't consider that whatsoever is going to do anything. It's not the fuse. I've checked the fuse. It's under this rear armrest fuse panel, but it's not that one. I've checked it. I'm going to reset key on and off again. So I heard it do the self-test when I turned the key on. You could hear it go whomp and stop. I'm just going to hold this bladder. Okay, that was full. Full. Empty. You can probably hear the hiss. Fill again. Empty the middle, one of the middle lumbers. Now it's not working again. Very, very weird. If there's an air leak, that pump will stop working to keep itself from burning out. I know that. So is there an air leak I don't know about? And it can't be. I haven't moved the car. Driving around, maybe bumping around, might move a plastic air hose and it'll allow it to leak. I'm going to trace the air line and see if I can find any leak, and I might blow some smoke up through the pipes to see if I don't want to blow smoke into my air bladders. I have to take the driver's side seat back off and test those lines there. Back in a minute. Oh, we're going to have to go to a holding pattern for a minute because it's starting to rain. Back when this stops. Okay, back after a few minutes of rain. I've come to the conclusion there's no leaks. So I have no leaks. If there are no leaks, the only thing it can be is the pressure sensor. It's faulty. It's turning the pump off when it doesn't need to. Let me try. Yeah, nothing again. Started the car a few times on and off, and pumped everything up, checked for pressure leaks, and there's no leaks anywhere. Blue cigarette smoke. Don't smoke, kids. But blue cigarette smoke through all the lines. There is no leaks. And when everything is inflated, it does not lose the inflation. So can't be any leaks. Check valve must be working because it's holding the pressure. The only thing it can possibly be is, again, like I said, that pressure switch. That's got to be it. So I can either take that. I have to pull it apart and find a generic pressure switch, and it's God, surface mounting a switch. Don't like doing that. I hate soldering surface mount stuff. I can't do it. Buying a new unit, not probably going to happen because this works most of the time, and persistence pays off. This was going to put the seat back on. I noticed that this little splitter that goes up to the air bladders for the side bolsters for squeezing and pinching them in and out was really zip tied on like hard, blocking this thing off. Once I loosened it, this thing works perfectly. Everything's working fine again now. You can see it pumping up. Works fine now. It was this zip tie. Maybe it was some of the stuff we touched, I don't know. But this wasn't helping. Anyway, thanks for watching. Everything's good now.